Welcome to Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and tastemakers.
Brought to you by Chord Real Estate, your key to the heart of Nashville. I'm Steve Luther alongside my co-host Van Hoy.
Here we peel back the layers of Nashville's vibrant scene, sitting down with the innovators, creators, and leaders who shape our city. From music to business and everything in between, we dive into the journeys that have brought them to where they are today.
We're here to uncover the stories behind the success, the passion driving their pursuits, and why they've chosen Nashville as their stage. It's about the people who dream big, push boundaries, and make this city truly unique.
So join us as we explore the heart and soul of Nashville through the eyes of those who know it best.
Well, today we're delighted to welcome Brian Moyer, founder and CEO of the Innovation Studio, a hub for cultivating and accelerating innovation. With over 3 decades of experience in leading and growing technology-driven businesses, Brian has been at the forefront of launching multiple companies, products, and services aimed at making substantial impacts in their fields. His work extends beyond business development into mentoring, where he leverages his vast knowledge to empower other entrepreneurs and innovators. Brian's dedication to solving complex problems and fostering innovation has earned him recognition as a Nashville Power 100 business leader and a global top 100 thought leader. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. You'd think I wrote that myself.
Man, you sound like somebody that Steve would be friends with.
Yeah, my previous career was in IT. So.
I love it.
So talk to us a little bit about Innovation Studio. What was kind of the inspiration behind that?
The inspiration goes back to actually my time as CEO of the Greater Nashville Technology Council. I spent 6 years leading that organization. And during that time, unbeknownst to me, when I took the job, I got very involved in economic development. And that turned out to be the most enjoyable part of that gig, was working with the state, the city, the chambers in Middle Tennessee to try to recruit tech talent and tech companies. And what I realized, what all of us realize if you pay attention to the news, is Nashville is very good at recruiting tech companies to town.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to my counterpart in Atlanta, the CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia, and we were comparing Atlanta and Nashville. Both cities have done a great job of being able to recruit companies. And he said, but compare that to Seattle. So Larry spent his early career in economic development in Seattle. He said, nobody recruited Microsoft or Amazon or Costco or Starbucks or Boeing's. They were all born in Seattle.
Right.
And the difference that's had on their economy has been incredible. And so when I tried to think of a great example in Nashville, the best one I could come up with was Oracle. Now 3 years old, but still the largest economic development win in the history of the state.
Yeah.
Right.
1 point whatever billion investment, 8,500 jobs. And yet Oracle locally will never have the impact that HCA has had on Nashville, because HCA was born here. You just have a different feel for the responsibility and willingness to give back to the community. So it made me wonder why we weren't spending more time trying to launch the next generation of tech companies as we're spending recruiting companies to town.
Right.
And so this goes back several years. And that's when I decided that that's what I wanted to do when I left the Tech Council, was figure out how to launch the next generation of tech companies. And it was a little embarrassing to admit, but there really wasn't there'd never been a concerted effort to do that in town. Yes, the Entrepreneur Center is doing its thing. There's been a lot of healthcare companies that have launched, but not pure tech companies. And that was my passion. So,
because we've got publishing,
yes,
100 years ago, the written publishing, all that, even Southwestern Books and all the things like that, or Southeastern Books, I don't know, but whatever. And then, we've got music, healthcare, but tech.
Yes. And the next question was, so how do you go about doing that?
Right.
And so we spent quite a bit of time researching, do we start an incubator like the Entrepreneur Center, only focused on tech?
Mm-hmm.
Do we partner with maybe a Techstars or a Y Combinator and bring an accelerator to town? Do we, raise a venture fund and start investing in people to? And I was introduced to this concept of a venture studio, which I wasn't familiar with. And a venture studio is not an incubator, it's not an accelerator, it's not a venture fund, but it has attributes of all three of those. So with a venture studio, you don't start with an entrepreneur or a company, you start with an idea. And better put, a problem that needs to be solved.
Oh, wow.
And then the secret sauce in the studio model, this is a long answer to your question.
No.
It's a good one.
Is you de-risk that idea by, defining what the problem is that you're solving and what the market is that you're applying that to, who your first customer is, what does that persona look like, who are 10 more customers you can go after, what's your business model, how are you going to make money, all the way through proving out technical feasibility and getting as close to product market fit as you can before you start the company.
That's good.
So you've taken away a majority of the ways that a typical startup might fail before you write the check and actually start the company. So that's the studio model. I immediately fell in love with that and said, this is it. This is what we're looking for. This is what we're going to do. That's what the Innovation Studio is. Our goal over the next 4 years is to launch 12 new tech companies here in Middle Tennessee.
I love it.
Now, are these ideas that you guys are coming up with and then you're sort of building the business around it? Or these, you said you're not really starting with an entrepreneur, but is there someone that comes in and presents an idea? Like what's the beginning of this process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically with studios, the ideas come from the founders of the studio.
Gotcha.
And I have a very experienced team of co-founders, and we thought early on, yeah, we can do that. We can come up with these ideas, and then we eventually landed on a slightly different approach, and that is to partner with corporations, to walk in and say, what are the really big problems that you're facing that we could help you solve? We're not coming in as consultants. We're not going to do a one-off fix here. We want to solve your problem while at the same time launching a company that we take to market. And so the advantage to us is pretty obvious. You have a real life problem with a major company. You have access to data, which is always a challenge for a startup. You have access to subject matter experts, and you have your built-in first customer.
Right.
And then the advantage to this company is if this is a problem that's big enough to have the attention of the C-suite, probably you've budgeted dollars to try and fix that problem.
Right.
So keep those budgeted dollars, keep those operational dollars, and instead simply transfer some money off of your balance sheet into the studio. In other words, invest into the studio. We're going to solve your problem. You're going to have equity in this company that we create. And so you get your problem solved and you have an upside in the future. When this company sells, you'll make money off of it.
And you've got some creatives that have understanding that are going to team up with you.
Yes.
I love it.
Now, are you guys involved with the chambers or the accelerator programs, or this is really just you guys kind of going out and approaching whatever business you think may make a good customer?
So I've got great relationships with all of the chambers and the existing accelerators. There's a few in town, but really this is our deal. I'm keeping them informed, looking for prospects
Right.
that they might feel is appropriate, but it's where we stand alone with this and we're building it ourselves.
That's cool.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
If somebody's got some creative idea, can they come to you? If they have some big idea that they want to go after, or are you looking for companies with a problem to solve solely?
That's another good question. And when the press went out late last year about the launch of the studio, I had a lot of phone calls.
I bet.
Creative
I bet.
people
Right.
had
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were trying to figure out, well, can I get investment from you? You know what?
Right.
How can you help? And I turned a lot of those people away
Sure.
at the time. I think that ultimately we will probably start to embrace some of those conversations. But to start with, we want to try and stay true to the model that we laid out and partner with the companies to find the problem sets that we're going to solve.
Now, are you typically approaching the company, or is the company dealing with an issue, can't really find a solution to it, and they approach you and say, "Hey, we've got this issue. Do you guys think you could do something with this?"
So far, we've been reaching out to companies. First company that we're working with is Tractor Supply. There's not a specific industry vertical that we're going after. People assume that we're going after healthcare, that we're going after music or entertainment, and probably that's not where we're going to go. I think, and I hope, as we get our first companies launched and we're able to talk about the success of those, that companies will come to us. I know with other studios that have a similar approach, that's what's happened, and so I hope that that's what happens for us.
That's good.
Now, you talk a lot about on your website about industrial AI. Kind of explain what that means and why that is such a focus for you guys.
When we first started talking about this idea of launching new companies and really trying to grow the innovation economy here, a lot of the people that I was talking to were encouraging me and our team to focus on health tech. I mean, yes, okay, that makes sense, but that's really, even though that's what brought me to town, and I spent a couple of decades in that field, that really wasn't where my heart was. I really was more interested in tech fundamentally rather than just health tech. And then to define that a little further, we decided 3 years ago, advanced data science. This is the future. This is where tech is going, and that is now, of course, morphed into AI. So, because of this craziness that is around AI right now, it's almost embarrassing. And I've heard so many people say the exact same thing. I'm embarrassed to say that we're focused on AI because everybody's focused on AI these days. We wrote that white paper to define kind of our take on what the flavor of AI was that we were going to get behind, and we kind of coined this phrase, industrial AI. So we don't plan to bring science to this and create a new AI tool. We plan to use tools that already exist, either open source or that are available on the public market, and leverage those tools to solve problems that corporations have. So I think, in fact, I was listening to a podcast as I was driving over here, and two different people said, yeah, I've probably talked to hundreds of companies that have been pitching AI ideas. I haven't invested in any of them. And the other one said, well, I haven't either. And, I just think it's silly to think, yeah, I'm going to go out and invest in AI, because the differentiator is still going to be the fundamentals. What's the problem that you're solving? And really, as soon as possible, that's all we're going to be talking about. AI will be a secondary topic, and we just want to talk about the problems that we're solving, and the underlying technology isn't as important as the problems that are being solved.
It's like the jet fuel. It's going to make us go faster in everything we do.
Similar thing happened to blockchain a few years back. Everybody got all excited about blockchain, and pretty soon they learned that, okay, it's best if we stop talking about blockchain and start talking about the problems that we're solving. And it doesn't really matter what this underlying technology is.
Right.
Although I would love if people get excited about crypto and go out and buy more.
Oh my God. Here we go. Here we go.
What are some of the challenges that you face, with startups, as you're going through this process?
So I'm focused every day on three different priorities.
Mhm.
Um, One is we're raising money to fund the studio, and that's coming along nicely. But it's there. There have been better days to raise money.
Sure.
It's a challenge for everybody. Literally, everybody that I talk to that's trying to raise money is saying the same thing. But that's one challenge. Um, Second is trying to build out this queue or deal flow of corporate partners that we want to work with in the future.
Mhm.
We've got two deals going right now, and both of those look like they could actually end up being our first two companies. So that's kind of exciting. We don't need any more activity right this second, but still, you've got to be looking ahead
Right.
and trying to figure out who those next set of corporate partners might be that we want to partner with. And then the third is maybe more important than either of those, and that is who you're going to get to run these companies that you're starting.
Right.
And so, fortunately, for the past, I mean, I've been in Nashville for 25 years and I've been involved in the tech and the startup ecosystem in various ways for that entire time. I've been able to build a pretty good network of contacts, and um, I know I have a list of a couple of dozen people
Mhm.
that have recently started companies, exited companies, and they're looking for what's next. And that's exactly who we're looking for. In many cases, they say, I'm not sure that I really have the energy to start a company from scratch again. But what you're describing through this studio model, how you're going to de-risk this, how you're going to be a co-founder with us, how you're going to stick with us and support us until the time that the company exits, that I could get behind.
Mhm.
And so um, those are the three priorities or the three challenges that we're kind of focused on right now. Eventually, it will be building out the teams um, for these what we call newcos, for these new companies that we
Right.
start. Um, we'll be looking to hire many more people than the studio itself will be hiring, and so talent is always an issue, but it's one of the, in my opinion, um, one of the benefits of being located in Nashville.
You bet.
So, talk a little bit about that. Why Nashville? I just said, obviously, you live here and you want to see Nashville succeed, but for something like this,
Because Nashville's best. Hello.
do you find advantage? Well, you talked about this with some other guests, like Nashville, probably because of the music industry, is very collaborative, and people are very open, to talking and helping, and it's probably easier to have conversations with some of these businesses here than in other parts of the country. Do you find that to be the case, or?
I absolutely do. And it's one of my favorite talking points just because I lived this story and talked this story for so many years as
Mhm.
we were, trying to recruit talent and recruit companies. The kind of the X factor that I see with Nashville is this creative ecosystem. You brought it up earlier. There is no other city in the nation, maybe in the world, that has the nucleus of creativity that exists
I
in
agree.
Nashville right now.
Yeah.
And it's so transferable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about, so music was very important in my life years and years and years ago. I was never a Nashville musician. I was a St. Louis musician. But I, at one point, taught myself to code. And I think the reason that I found that so easy to do was because of my musical background. There's, this mathematical side to
Yeah.
music and software. There's the creative side to music and software. I see it over and over and over again where people are attracted to Nashville to pursue their dream in music or entertainment. And maybe, they're lucky enough to get out on the road for a while and they decide, okay, now I need to settle back down. I want to have a family. This isn't the lifestyle for me. What am I going to do?
That's right.
Maybe they never get to the part of being able to travel with that. Nevertheless, they still have these innate skills that make them very good at tech. And so I'm a living example of that, and I've seen it over and over and over again. The other way that plays in is over 100 years, people have been coming to Nashville to pursue this dream of becoming an artist in some way. It's a very entrepreneurial journey. And it's been so long that it's just kind of baked in my opinion, it's just kind of baked into Nashville's DNA. People just understand what it is to be an entrepreneur and laying it all on the line for your dream.
It's celebrated too here. It's not looked down on.
Yes, exactly.
You could be being served at a restaurant and you find out somebody's a musician or whatever. You're like, hey, tell me where you're playing next. You're like, oh, okay, good luck. There's not a cynicism, I don't think here. It's people will celebrate it.
Yeah, it's a special place. And this intersection of technology and creativity is truly the X factor that Nashville has. When so look at the big name wins that we've had of companies that we've recruited: Amazon, Oracle, NTT Data. And dozens and dozens and dozens of other tech companies that have relocated primarily from the coasts, from either California or New York, Boston. When you ask them why Nashville, which I always wanted to know, one of the first things out of their mouth, yes, it's a business-friendly state. I'm personally going to benefit from no state income tax.
That's right. Sure.
But very soon after those nuts and bolts kinds of answers, it's the talent. Not that we have, thousands of people sitting on the sidelines unemployed waiting to go to work. It's that we've got 21, 22 colleges and universities, the Athens of the South.
That's right.
They know that. And also, it's easy to recruit people here. I was very fortunate to get the EVP of application development for Oracle on stage, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks after they made their announcement 3 years ago. And my first question to Steve was, why Nashville? And his answer was, it's all about the talent. We're interviewing people all the time. And we have offices on the West Coast. We have offices in Austin. It's like, where do you want to work? It's like, I want to live in Nashville. And he said, why fight that? Why not just come to Nashville where people want to be?
Right.
Yeah.
It's good.
You said you wanted to birth 12 companies in the next year or so. How many ideas do you go through to get 12 that stick? Like, how much of your week is just spitballing ideas?
Yeah. So the way the way the pro forma looks, what we're projecting that to look like. So it's 12 companies in 4 years. So 3 companies a year.
Gotcha.
We expect that on average, every month, we're going to take a new idea and start this evaluation process, this de-risking process. So 12 ideas, 3 companies that get launched. You go up one step in the funnel, and there's probably going to be dozens and dozens and dozens of potential ideas that are floating around that get filtered into the 12 that then get filtered into the 3. So that's the way we're looking at it. Those are the numbers that we're looking at.
And you mentioned earlier talking about people that might step in because you're de-risking so much of this through the exit. Now, a lot of tech companies, I used to be in the tech world. A lot of tech companies are started with an exit in mind. wanting to be acquired by a larger company, whatever it may be. What is your strategy with these? Is it to have someone eventually buy it out? Is it to take it public? Is it, let's just see where it goes? Like, what's your mentality on that?
So it's similar to a venture fund in that uh, we have limited partners that have invested into the fund that's backing the studio, and they're expecting a return on their investment
Right.
within a certain period of time. So we are going to have that in mind. We anticipate an average of 5 years from start to exit. That's what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could be any of the examples that you mentioned. I think we could look for a strategic acquirer. I think it could be a private equity roll up, which happens fairly frequently. I would love to see one of these go public. I don't know if we'll have that chance. I think that the companies that we're partnering with could end up being a strategic acquirer of the new company that gets launched. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of different options there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about, de-risking and building these businesses. Obviously you've got experience doing this. What's some advice you would give to just any entrepreneur that wants to get going, starting a business, especially in the tech field, um, outside of an innovation studio? Just like, what's some of the key advice you would give for an entrepreneur trying to start a business?
Number one is start with a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky. I mentioned a little bit ago that I taught myself to code. I did that because a friend of mine who worked at a hospital had a problem that he was needing some help solving. And I taught myself to code so that I could help write an application, create a product to help him solve his problem. I was lucky, I just kind of fell into that.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched so many people that, create a solution and then go out looking for a problem to try to apply it to. It's just so much harder. So it's always best if you start with a problem. And then, things are moving so quickly. I don't know how long it was that you were really in the tech world, but it's just changed so much.
Oh yeah.
It's easier in many ways. The coding is easier. Back in my day, you just had to worry about so many more things than you do today that are just built into the products that you have. And now we have AI that's actually writing code. And so I don't see that putting developers' jobs at risk, not at all, but I do see it making them more efficient at what they do. And so I guess if it's a tech company, another piece of advice would be, leverage the tools that are available out there and don't think that you have to recreate the wheel. And then also important is find mentors, even if it's just one, but find mentors to help you through, people that have been there and done that. There's so many, the Nashville way is if you call and ask for help, people are going to give it to you.
That's right.
They're going to at least grant that first coffee with you. The second one you've got to earn, but they'll always be there to grant that first coffee with you. So take advantage of that. Go out and find people that have been there, done that. So many people are willing to help, and then eventually create an advisory board, not necessarily investors that have, a governance board, but an advisory board of people that you respect that you can turn to for advice as you're going through the challenges that all of us ultimately face.
That's right.
What about the model of a venture studio? I mean, so much of everything is revolves around tech now, but do you think this is a model that could be used in different industries, not just so focused on tech? Or
Oh yeah, it's the first studio was launched in San Francisco back in, I think, 1996. It was called the Idea Lab.
Gotcha.
and it was a tech-focused studio. But there's hundreds operating all over the world now. Dollar Shave Club came out of a studio. There's lots of examples of non-tech companies that were launched using the studio model. And because of that de-risking that takes place, and there's all kinds of different flavors of the way people run their studios, but the one thing that is really consistent is this de-risking process that they take the ideas through before they launch the company. Um, the success rate for companies that are launched using the studio model is twice that of your typical venture-backed company.
Wow.
Just because it's so structured, you de-risk it. And then the other part of that is when the company launches, the studio is a co-founder with whoever you recruit to be the CEO and the rest of that team that you bring on board. So you stay engaged shoulder to shoulder, offering continual services up until that company eventually exits.
Do you feel like the staffing portion is really probably the most complicated part of this? I know we've talked to a lot of different business owners, small businesses. Even for us, personnel is just so hard. It's so frustrating. I can't imagine having to figure that out for multiple businesses. Do you feel like that's going to be one of the most difficult things to deal with, is putting these teams together?
We do. And when you look at studios that are successful, usually, they'll end up with 15, 20, 30 people max. The studio is never going to be a big company. The newcos, the companies that you launch, you hope to have, hundreds of employees maybe.
Right.
But what you see is that 20 or 30 people, it's not big technical teams, even for those studios that are focused on tech. It's talent recruitment, and it's marketing and communications, and it's go to market. Those are areas that every startup struggles with.
Yeah.
And that the studio can have, because they're spreading this out in a shared services model across, 12 different companies eventually. You can afford to pay for a higher quality person than that one newco might be able to pay for.
Right.
So you can offer this shared services. But you're right, talent is definitely one of those.
How do you measure success as you're launching these? Like what are the KPIs? What are you wanting to see that you would call successful?
Well, I think right now we're just trying to work the plan, work the model. And so making sure that we have new ideas that we're starting with, making sure that, at least 3 of those turn into companies where we haven't launched our new company. It's just, there hasn't been enough time for that to happen yet. But
Sure.
like I said, there could be within the next 60 to 90 days, our first 2 companies would launch. And so that would be an obvious step of success that would come out of that. And then I think you've got to create, and this is largely up to the CEO of that new company to kind of determine, but they will have their own metrics and their own KPIs that they'll use to track success. By partnering with corporations, the other benefit that brings is we should be able to launch these companies with fairly substantial annual recurring revenue commitments, because that company that we're partnering with becomes our first customer.
Right.
And if we've done our job right, we actually like to think that these companies will launch at the equivalent of a Series A stage, because we have de-risked what would typically be a pre-seed and a seed stage. We've got this recurring revenue that we've been able to get from our corporate partner. And so by the time these companies launch, they just have all of that going. So we think it's a very strong place to start from.
You talked a little bit about advisory boards as a someone trying to start a business, the importance of an advisory board. Do you see the studio is filling that role? Are you putting together advisory boards for these companies you're launching as well? What's the thought process behind that?
So the studio will absolutely be on their governance board.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I would encourage every one of these companies to have an advisory board. And I serve on a couple of boards right now, which is a different topic that we can get into that's kind of near and dear to me, because another thing I've noticed in observing startups that are around town is people don't understand how to assemble an advisory board. It becomes a good old boys. Well, let's go have a beer and we'll talk over this. Instead of, what are the problems? What are the specific problems that I'm facing as a CEO or owner of this company? And what skills do I need to supplement me to help me solve those problems?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you need to start thinking about an advisory board. And then you go out and find people you might not even know. Your best friend may not have that skill, so why bring them on to your advisory board?
Right.
So go out and find those specific skills and bring that talent in that's going to help you achieve your goals. And maybe in 6 or 12 or 18 months, you don't need those skills anymore. And so you dissolve that board and you find, people with new skills to help you get to the next level.
Do you find typically the advisory boards are given some kind of a stipend, given some kind of share in the company? Like how are those typically?
Yeah, all of the above, depending on the size and maturity of the company.
Mm-hmm.
If you're very small, there isn't a lot of cash.
Right.
And so many times equity is the only thing that you have to offer. When I do think it's very important that you compensate these advisors, not necessarily because they're asking for that. They're giving you something that's valuable, and you need to acknowledge the fact that there's value to this,
right,
as a business expense. And so in many cases, it could be a combination, but it's not unusual for there to be cash payments
mm-hmm.
to advisory board members.
What are the long-term goals for Innovation Studio?
So we're going to do this for 4 years, and then we'll keep the studio open until the last of these 12 companies exit, while simultaneously starting the Innovation Studio 2. And you kind of rinse and repeat this process. It's very similar to the way a lot of venture funds work. They'll raise a fund, they'll invest for 4 years, they'll then keep the fund going until the last of these companies exit, and they can give their limited partners the return that they're expecting,
mm-hmm.
and then they spin up Fund 2 and Fund 3 and
right.
Fund 4. So that's the long-term goal.
And the core group that's part of Innovation Studio will continue with each iteration.
Yes.
Well, very cool. Well, Brian, we appreciate you being here today. I'm sure we're going to hear great things coming from the Innovation Studio.
Big ideas.
I can't wait to hear about these businesses that are getting ready to launch.
Well, thanks. This has been fun. I appreciate you asking me to join you today.
Of course.
And if somebody has a company that they want to contact you, what do they do?
So I'm easy to find. BD Moyer or BD Moyer is my Twitter handle. That's also my LinkedIn handle, or Brian at theinnovationstudio.ai.
Perfect.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and we're looking forward to hearing good things.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
We'll see you guys next time. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and taste makers.
We hope you've been inspired by the stories of passion, perseverance, and innovation right here in Nashville.
A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journeys, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. And of course, our gratitude to Chord Real Estate for making this conversation possible.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite
Did I just
platform.
Thank us.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I guess I did. Well, thank us. Okay.
Like I was saying.
Oh, yeah. Go
Don't
ahead.
forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform to catch every episode and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more fascinating guests lined up, ready to share their insights and inspirations.
And we love hearing from you. So reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for who you'd like to hear from next.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making your mark in Nashville.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember,
Am I talking to Casey
it's the
Kasem?
people behind the scenes that make the city shine.
I love it. Take care. See you behind the curtain.